All right, so let's jump into a story that might just make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the Roman Empire.
Okay.
Picture this.
Okay.
It's 9 AD
Right.
and three entire Roman legions.
Wow.
Some of the most elite fighting forces in the ancient world
Mm-hmm.
vanish
What did
into
that?
thin air.
Seriously.
Gone.
Oh.
Wiped out in the dense, unforgiving forests of Germania.
Oh my God.
This wasn't just a defeat.
Right.
It was a turning point in history.
Yeah.
A moment that sent shockwaves
Mm-hmm.
through the heart of Roman power.
Yeah.
We're talking, of course, about the Battle of Chutterberg Forest.
The Battle of Chutterberg Forest.
Right.
And what makes this battle so compelling
Right.
is that it wasn't just about military tactics. It was about clashing cultures, about the limits of imperial ambition,
Okay.
and about how underestimating your enemy
Right.
can lead to catastrophic consequences.
And to truly understand how this happened, we need to go back even further
Okay.
to those early encounters between Rome and the Germanic tribes.
Okay.
You know, Julius Caesar,
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy who wrote the book on conquering Gaul.
Right.
Well, even he had his hands full
He did.
when he first tangled with the Germanic tribes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Caesar's accounts paint a picture
Okay.
of a people hardened by a harsh climate and a lifestyle that prized independence and martial prowess.
Wow.
The Romans, used to the relative luxury of the Mediterranean world, were taken aback by their ferocity.
Really?
Yeah.
So Caesar basically dipped his toes in the Germanic waters,
Yeah.
clashed a bit,
Right.
and then decided, maybe I'll stick to conquering Gaul for now.
Interesting.
But his successor, Augustus, had a different vision.
Okay.
He saw Germania as the next frontier, ripe for expansion and Romanization.
Augustus wanted to bring those unruly Germanic tribes into the fold to absorb them into the Roman world. And his approach was multifaceted.
Oh, well.
It wasn't just about brute force. It was about cultural assimilation as well.
Right. And one of the key tools in this assimilation playbook was the hostage system.
Hostage system.
Imagine young Germanic nobles plucked from their families,
Oh, wow.
brought to Rome,
Okay.
given a Roman education, dressed in togas,
Wow.
even learning to appreciate a good Roman bath.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The idea was to create a generation of pro-Roman leaders within the tribes themselves.
Yeah.
They'd learn Roman ways, become comfortable with Roman culture, and then ideally return home as advocates for cooperation.
Right.
It was a clever strategy, but it had one fatal flaw.
And that flaw had a name.
A name.
Arminius.
Arminius.
This young Germanic prince, taken hostage as a boy,
Wow.
rose through the ranks of the Roman army,
Oh, wow.
mastering their tactics, their discipline, their strengths, and their weaknesses.
Imagine the internal conflict he must have felt.
Oh, yeah.
Trained as a Roman soldier,
Right.
immersed in Roman culture, but always aware of his Germanic heritage.
Yeah.
It's a story ripe with dramatic tension.
It really is. It's like a slow-burning fuse, waiting to ignite.
Right.
He's playing both sides,
Yeah.
gaining Rome's trust, while secretly plotting their downfall.
And this brings us to the appointment of Publius Quintilius Varus as governor of Germania. Varus, a man more at home in the world of administration than on the battlefield, was tasked with finishing the job of pacifying the region.
Okay.
But as we'll see, his lack of military experience would prove to be a fatal miscalculation.
Because he walks right into Arminius's carefully laid trap.
Oh, yeah.
And what's even more shocking is that Varus was actually warned about Arminius's treachery beforehand.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Another Germanic chieftain, Gestes,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
saw right through Arminius's charade.
Wow.
He went to Varus and explicitly warned him of the impending rebellion.
So Varus had all the pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
He knew Arminius was a former hostage, a skilled warrior who understood Roman tactics.
Right.
And now he had this direct warning.
Yeah.
How could he possibly ignore it?
Well, it seems Varus, blinded by his own assumptions about Roman superiority,
Oh, wow.
simply dismissed Segestus as a jealous rival.
Oh, geez.
Driven by personal animosity toward Arminius,
Oh, no.
and to add even more drama to the mix,
Okay.
Arminius had actually eloped with Segestus's daughter.
So we've got a love triangle, political intrigue,
Right.
and a looming rebellion, all simmering beneath the surface.
Right.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
And this sets the stage for that fateful march into the Chutterberg Forest.
Oh, boy.
Varus, confident in Roman might and dismissive of the warnings he had received, led his legions into a trap that would change the course of history.
Wow.
Now imagine yourself as one of those Roman legionaries marching into the Chutterberg forest.
Right.
You're carrying heavy armor, weapons, supplies, maybe even thinking about that nice hot bath waiting for you back at camp. But the further you go, the more uneasy you feel.
Because this wasn't the kind of terrain the Romans were used to fighting in.
Right.
No wide open plains where they could deploy their formations and discipline. Yeah. Just dense, dark forest.
Exactly.
With limited visibility and the constant threat of ambush.
It was like stepping into another world.
Really?
A place where Roman strength and organization became liabilities.
Oh.
And all the while, Arminius, their supposed guide, was leading them deeper and deeper into this green hell.
It's almost like a horror movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, something terrible's about to happen.
Right.
But you can't quite see it coming.
The sources describe heavy rains turning the already difficult terrain into a muddy quagmire.
Oh, jeez.
Trees were falling, blocking paths.
Oh, wow.
Adding to the confusion and disarray.
Yeah.
The Roman column, stretched thin and struggling to maintain any semblance of order, was incredibly vulnerable.
And then, the moment of truth.
A moment of truth.
The eerie silence of the forest is shattered by the war cries of the Germanic tribes.
Oh, wow.
It's not a single attack,
but
a series of coordinated ambushes hitting the Roman column from all sides.
Imagine the panic.
Wow.
The chaos.
Yeah.
The sheer terror of those Roman soldiers.
I bet.
Suddenly they're fighting for their lives.
Right.
Not in a disciplined formation, but in a desperate, chaotic melee.
And Arminius, having learned from the best, knew exactly how to exploit Roman weaknesses.
He did.
He turned the terrain into a weapon.
Yep.
Using the dense forest to negate Roman advantages in weaponry and organization.
The Romans, accustomed to fighting in open formations, were completely outmaneuvered. Their heavy armor, a symbol of their power in conventional battles, became a deadly burden.
Oh, no.
Slowing them down, making them easy targets.
They did try to fight back, though, right?
They did.
They tried to regroup to establish a defensive position.
Yes. They made several attempts to regroup to form a defensive line.
Right.
But it was all but impossible in that broken terrain.
Yeah.
They were constantly harassed, attacked from the flanks.
Oh, wow.
Forced to fight in small, isolated groups.
It's like watching a well-oiled machine suddenly fall apart.
Right.
Its gears grinding to a halt.
Yeah.
All that discipline, all that training, rendered useless by the sheer ferocity and unpredictability of the attack.
And to make matters worse, the Roman cavalry, which could have provided some mobility and flanking support, was led by a commander who completely panicked. He fled the battlefield with his horsemen, abandoning the infantry to their fate.
Can you imagine the feeling of betrayal those legionaries must have felt?
Oh, I know.
Abandoned by their own, surrounded by a relentless enemy, their hope dwindling with every passing hour.
The sources paint a grim picture of the fighting that followed.
Oh, no.
It wasn't a glorious battle, but a brutal, desperate struggle for survival.
Yeah.
The Romans, exhausted, demoralized, and hopelessly outnumbered, were slaughtered.
And what about Varus?
Varus?
Did he die fighting or was he captured?
Faced with the utter destruction of his legions and knowing the horrific fate that awaited him if captured, Varus chose to take his own life.
Oh, wow.
It was a final act of defiance.
Yeah.
A way to avoid the ultimate humiliation of defeat.
So the Roman legions are decimated, their commander is dead, and Arminius is standing amidst the wreckage of Roman ambition. It's a stunning victory.
Yeah.
A David and Goliath moment that would echo through history. But what happens next?
Right.
Did Arminius lead his forces on to Rome itself, toppling the empire at his heart?
That's a question that has fascinated historians for centuries.
Yeah.
Arminius certainly had momentum on his side, and the Germanic tribes were clearly capable of inflicting devastating blows on the Romans.
Right.
But instead of marching on Rome, they focused their efforts on dismantling Roman infrastructure east of the Rhine, expelling any remaining Roman presence.
That's interesting. You'd think they would have wanted to press their advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe even capture a major Roman city as a symbol of their power.
Right.
What stopped them?
There are a few theories.
Okay.
Remember, the Germanic tribes weren't a single unified entity.
Right.
They were a collection of different groups, often with their own rivalries and agendas.
Yeah.
Uniting them for a single decisive battle was one thing.
Okay.
But maintaining that unity for a prolonged campaign deep into Roman territory would have been a whole different challenge.
So maybe it was internal divisions that held them back?
Could be.
Or perhaps they simply lacked the logistical capacity to sustain a long-range campaign?
Possibly.
But how did Rome react to this devastating defeat? I can't imagine the news was received well back in the capital.
Well, the sources describe a wave of panic and fear sweeping through Rome.
Oh, wow.
Augustus, as we've discussed, was utterly devastated by the loss of 3 entire legions.
Right.
He took steps to secure the city itself.
Okay.
Fearing a potential uprising or even a Germanic invasion.
He must have felt personally responsible. After all, he was the one who had set the goal of conquering Germania. This wasn't just a military defeat, it was a blow to his legacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It challenged the very notion of Roman invincibility and raised serious questions about the wisdom of Augustus's expansionist policies.
Right.
And while he took steps to stabilize the situation, the shadow of Chutterberg Forest hung over his remaining years.
But Rome wasn't about to just let this stand, right?
No.
They were the dominant power in the Mediterranean, used to crushing their enemies.
Right.
Surely there had to be a reckoning.
There was. The task of restoring Roman honor fell to Germanicus, the son of Nero Claudius Drusus. The general who had initially campaigned in Germania.
Right.
He was given command of a substantial force and tasked with both punishing the Germanic tribes and recovering the lost eagle standards of the legions.
So the son sets out to avenge the father's defeat. It has a certain poetic justice to it, doesn't it?
It does.
But this wasn't just about personal revenge. It was about sending a message,
right?
Reminding the world that Rome might be wounded, but it was far from broken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Germanicus launched a series of brutal campaigns east of the Rhine.
Okay.
Aiming to inflict as much damage as possible on the tribes involved in the Chutterberg ambush.
Wow.
He recovered 2 of the lost eagle standards, symbols of Roman military power, and brought back thousands of Roman captives.
So Rome had its revenge, a measure of retribution for the humiliation they had suffered. But did they ever attempt to fully reconquer Germania after this?
Interestingly, no.
Really?
While they continued to campaign in the region, they never again committed to the kind of large-scale conquest that Augustus had envisioned. The empire shifted its focus, consolidating its existing borders along the Rhine and Danube rivers.
So in a sense, Arminius and the Germanic tribes achieved their goal.
Right.
They stopped Roman expansion in its tracks and preserved their independence.
Yeah.
It's a legacy that would shape the future of Europe.
It's fascinating to think about how different history might have been if the Romans had succeeded in conquering Germania.
Oh, yeah.
Would the cultural landscape of Europe be entirely different?
Right.
Would the Germanic tribes have been absorbed into the Roman world? Their own distinct identities erased?
Wow.
It's a what-if scenario that highlights the enduring significance of the Battle of Chutterberg Forest.
It's a story that reminds us that even the mightiest empires have their limits, that underestimating your opponent can have catastrophic consequences, and that the desire for freedom and self-determination can be a powerful force for change.
And perhaps on a more personal level. It encourages us to reflect on those moments in our own lives where we've faced seemingly insurmountable challenges, where we've had to dig deep and find the courage to resist, to fight for what we believe in. The story of Chutterberg Forest is a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience and the enduring power of hope, even in the face of overwhelming odds.
It's a story that leaves us with much to ponder about history, about power, and about the enduring human spirit. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the past, be sure to subscribe to the Deep Dive for more fascinating explorations of the events and ideas that have shaped our world.